Michael. Hello, Michael. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Good to have you here. All right. So we are taking it from the top. Just to do a quick recap, we started with Brim Basim this morning about how do you adopt new technologies. And then we got into peer-to-peer with Tracy Earl, talking about how you take events, maybe virtual or postpone them or have those hard decisions and conversations. So now I'm super excited to talk to you about a virtual gaming event, live streaming that you've been doing, and you just had Extra Life last week. So there's this whole new, thing about live streaming happening in the world. And some people are like, what is this? What do I do? Do I need to do this? And that's what I'm hoping that we can get in here today. Sound good?
Sounds perfect.
Awesome. So just give me a quick background on yourself, Michael. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what you're about.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Mike Kinney. I work at Children's Miracle Network Hospitals. We manage national strategic partnerships and programs that we then roll out locally across the United States and Canada to benefit 170 children's hospitals. So our big thing is where the dollar is raised, that's where the dollar stays. So local, and figuring out how to do that in a virtual environment has been quite the challenge, but a lot of fun. So hope to dive into that a little bit too.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so tell me a little bit about Extra Life. How did you, first off, let's back up. What is a live stream event? Let's define that for people who are everyone's saying this. What does that mean?
For sure. I mean, you could call this a live stream event.
Yes.
This is exactly what we're doing. We're live on camera. There's no editing.
Obviously, if you were here for the last thing.
Right? Yeah, no, stay on the line for me, please.
I'm trying to. You know what to do now if I drop.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think just starting with the baseline understanding that if you think of live streaming as just another form of communication, it's the way kind of the scariness of it all, right? So just how your organization has a social media strategy or an email marketing strategy or a direct mail strategy, you should be having a live streaming strategy. Because if you boil it down to as just a communication channel, you can really design a ton of different types of events and use live streaming as just one way to communicate with your audience. So live streaming can be used for stewardship events. We've gone into corporate partner locations, live streaming on Facebook and surprised them with an award, just saying thank you. We've obviously used it for fundraising events. That's where this Extra Life fundraising program comes in. That's a lot of the peer-to-peer style stuff. Telethons is just actually the old school live streaming fundraiser event. And then, if you think about the webinars and the educational trainings that you might do with your staff or your chapters, that's just another piece of live streaming baked into an existing style of an event you're familiar with. Oh no, she froze. She did it to me. All right. Well, we'll just keep rolling with it, guys.
Live streaming. Hey, Michael, it's Jen. I don't know. We tried to get Taylor to a different place today so she would have better internet, but it appears that did not work out.
It's all good.
That's okay. You're ready to rock and roll anyway, though. You're going to keep doing so she's like, how did you get into this? I think was her next question for you is how did you start even getting into this at Children's Miracle Network? I think that's a big one.
Yeah. So I oversee one of our fundraising programs called Extra Life, and it's targeted towards engaging the gaming community. And live streaming is just kind of a natural element of the gaming community. But what's interesting about Extra Life and our peer-to-peer program there is it started out as a local fundraiser in 2008 and one of our national fundraisers in 2010. And live streaming really didn't start gaining traction really until about 2012, 2013.
Yeah.
It started off using all those runs, walks, bike rides, fundraising best practices, right? You got an online fundraising page, you personalized it, you sent it out to your friends and family via email or social media, and you said, hey, this is what I'm doing. Will you make a donation?
Right.
Live streaming, as it gained popularity, right? We always try to say, how do we put ourselves in the shoes of the end user? How do we make sure that we're meeting them where they are? So as live streaming started becoming popular, we looked at, well, how can we best support that, right? As peer-to-peer specialists, our job is to empower others to go out and fundraise within their networks. So just understanding the space was step
Yeah.
one, and figuring out what tools would actually help the participants use live streaming if that's what they wanted to do.
Right.
Knowing that it's a scary space for some, so it was never a requirement that you had to live stream to participate in any of our programs.
Right.
So you still had that comfortable safety net of, hey, I'm going to talk to my Facebook friends, or I'm going to tweet this out on Twitter. So there was always that balance of however you wanted to engage, you still could.
Right.
But we had to make sure we had the resources to help people if that was of interest to them.
Definitely. It's a brave new world.
Yeah, exactly. I would say, CMN Hospital started 30 plus years ago with a telethon. So there were a lot of lessons learned along the way there that were very transferable to the live streaming space.
Essentially, I think that's a good thing for people to that's a good comparable for at least those of us and maybe slightly older generations can sort of be like, I get the idea of like, it's live, we're happening, and again, no editing, what's happening. So kind of the idea of like, rather than having, I think right now the conversations I've been having with people is like, but then how do you like, like, what are the elements? How do I get started about thinking about how I'm doing that? When you guys were sort of first starting to move into this space, like, how did you sort of make that transition and say, here's how we're going to start to think about organizing what we might have? Obviously Taylor put together this amazing agenda. There's talking,
I'm back on my phone, by the way.
Yeah. I
just dialed in on my phone.
How do you think about putting the components together? How does an organization start thinking about, could I do this and how would I even start?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think first of all, you never have to go it alone, right? You might have volunteers and donors and advocates in your existing network who live in this space, who can help you kind of walk this path and avoid some of the pitfalls that you are for sure going to fall in. And just becoming okay with that is also another step. But, I think it goes back to deciding why you want to be in live streaming and what type of events you want to host. So
right.
Are they the stewardship events? Are they the peer-to-peer fundraising events? And from there, set your KPIs, your key performance indicators of how you're going to measure success when it's all done and over with. But in that process, remember to be kind to yourself, right? This could be your first time in the space. So set your expectations realistic.
Yeah, I think some of those, when you're doing it for the first time, I guess it's like, that would be good stuff that maybe we can gather from you too about like how you even set goals, for an organization is like, I don't know, I've had a 5K walk for the last 10 years and we've had this many participants in person. How do you even start to try to think about setting realistic goals for yourself when you virtualize it or you live stream it for the first time? How do you even set a fundraising goal for that? How do you set a participation goal for something that you haven't done before? You just take a stab at it and put a number out there. How did you guys sort of try to pivot to that?
Yeah. I mean, so there's a couple things, right? You have to look internally at your organization and at your audience. So really, how frictionless of an experience is your organization able to provide with the tools or technology that they currently have, right? Mm-hmm. So understand, just like with email marketing, every time you make somebody click or go through a website and then click here, people are going to drop off. And so making sure that you understand realistically what type of experience you can provide, but then your audience, right? You should probably have demographic information on who your donors or your participant base is. And based on that, you're going to understand, are these people new to this space? Are these platforms that they're comfortable with already?
Yeah.
And that, I think you can tailor your expectations. But setting a KPI as simple as, I'm going to walk away from this experience with 3 lessons learned that we're going to take into the next round. Give yourself some slack. That's a great KPI.
Exactly. I think that's a really good point to people. Like, I think that there's obviously all this pressure right now to be like, oh my God, I have to somehow try and recoup some of the funds that have been, potentially lost, or that they're going to be impacted pretty severely by like taking it virtual from a live event where we've had big success with fundraising around a big signature event. Just like, again, saying, give yourself some grace, that kind of thing. But I think you touched on something that's super important that I think even I've been sort of curious about, that the audience that you're going to be able to bring into a live streaming event versus your, understanding the different audiences. Can you speak a little bit about like how you've seen maybe the audience of something that you maybe have done before that's in in-person event to who's participating and interacting and some of the audiences you might be tapping into for the first time when you go into the live streaming space?
Yeah, as Taylor had mentioned, we had just wrapped up one of our Extra Life United events, and that was supposed to be a physical event that we do every year down in Orlando, Florida. And before we canceled that event and moved it to really rescheduled it and moved it to a virtual event, we had 400 people who were traveling across the country. They were going to join us at a conference center. We were going to play some games. We were going to meet some of our champion families and just have a great time in person. And by the time we launched our virtual event, which actually took place the same dates that the physical event would have taken place, we actually grew that virtual participant base to over 1,800 people. And
wow.
So, yeah, right. I mean, so we were able to, one of our key takeaways was, wow, physical events are great. We never want to replace what that means when somebody can be in the same room and that energy. Right. But how can we recreate that online? So regardless of if we do move back to a physical event, there's clearly an appetite of people who want to be a part of it, want to be there, but just can't travel, don't have the means to.
I think that's probably, if whoever's listening to this right now, like that's probably one of the most important takeaways we can have right now is virtual is a key component that you should just at this point think this is going to be a part of what I do going forward, even when we're able to go back and start doing some in-person events again. So incorporating this is it's a new element that needs to be added, not a temporary fix, or a little placeholder until, we get back to whatever. And so I think that'd be my like big takeaway for people right now is how to sort of think about two things there. It's an important new channel you need to just always incorporate into planning going forward. And two, you're going to reach totally different audiences. And right now, by doing a virtual component of it, think about that. You went from 400 to 1,800. You're like, these 1,800 people are probably going to be able to have the resources, whatever, to fly and get to places. You're going to be able to actually expand potentially some of the audiences. So having a virtual component to a lot of events, I think is critical. Right now, what are your markers for, like, what do you now have? How long have you been doing this? And then how have you seen it grow over time? At this point, kind of where are you seeing your success?
Yeah, I mean, so Extra Life has been around since 2008, a Seaman Hospital program in 2010. I joined the organization in 2013. And over the time, we've seen that live stream channel become more and more popular among our user demographic, our user base. And now I would say about 70% of all the dollars that we raise happen through live stream fundraising.
Wow.
So, yeah. And we've raised since 2008, $70 million, 15 million last year alone. So about 10 million of that came through live streaming. And the reason is because live streaming, it's just so engaging, right? Right now, if we were trying to have this conversation in an email, it would be so long. People would past it. They'd mark it complete, archive it, delete it, whatever. But because we can sit here and we can communicate, you can see my emotions, we can engage with each other in real time. That is the experience that your participants, the people who care so much about your cause, get to bring to their personal networks and say, this is why this means so much to me. Will you support my efforts? Will you donate? And the donor gets that instant gratification of seeing that response of the participant, being so thankful for that donation. You can do some fun things like, hey guys, if you donate right now, I'm going to shave my eyebrows off, right? Like there's just some really crazy
right here, it can happen.
I heard Taylor said if she dropped one more time, she was going to come back. No,
I mean, I don't know. I think Daniel's pretty excited about shaving your eyebrows. Okay, I don't know.
I'm here. I can hear this.
I know you are.
I'm
like,
in
wait a
twice.
minute, what did I say I was going to do?
I'm in twice. I'm not shaving my eyebrows. But I might. I mean, I don't know, y'all. If this quarantine goes on much longer, I might do like a Britney Spears, just shave my whole
green stripes in my hair or something really.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we're almost out of time, shockingly. But I'd love to know sort of like your big key takeaways, maybe some real key pointers for people who are nervous or anxious, maybe also how to help people sort of make that make that leap?
Sure.
Maybe 2 or 3 top things you learned.
Yeah. Well, we'll cram probably an hour's worth of content into these 3 minutes. So I would say, start off planning content for a virtual event just like you would for a physical event, and then take that content once it's set and figure out how you virtualize it. Live streaming will allow you to make some content even better, and other content you might just go, you know what, this isn't going to work out, and scratch it. Then take a look at the audience that you're trying to engage and figure out what platforms are they on. Are they on your social media channels, or are they on live streaming platforms like the Twitches, the Mixers, the YouTubes of the world? And then let that decide where your primary broadcast is going to take place.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to the event time, over communication is key. If you said it once, say it again, and then say it 2 more times after that.
Right.
Virtual volunteers, always have them on standby. You probably have some people who would be more than happy to basically be kind of that virtual bellboy, right? The one to say, hey, your room's down the hall in this virtual space. Make sure you're here next time. And then don't overcomplicate it. So you'll get super jazzed and excited when you realize all the different polls and chat bots and live stream engagements that you could integrate into an event, but also be thinking about, then you've got to communicate it not once, but twice, but 4 times.
Yeah.
And that end user experience for them to follow along. So keep it simple.
That sounds awesome. I appreciate all those tips and tricks. We do have a ton of questions that have come up that I think we'll probably, everybody that's got questions in the stream, we will answer them and we'll get them back to the right panelist, and we'll do a follow-up and we'll post those. But there was a lot of things about like cost differentiation, like if you're not having to do the in-persons and you're doing it, if you're virtual, like how do you charge for it? All those types of things. We want to be able to make sure that people get the nitty-gritty and the logistics sort of figured out, as this is probably one of the more hot topics that people are kind of like trying to wrap their brains around. How do you actually make it effective and be successful in a virtual space? So you just had an event. Can you just give us like one quick recap, like participation, dollars raised, whatever if you have like a high level takeaway from that one?
Yeah, so it was originally a community building event. We live in a very virtual world most of the year, and so this was our time to bring people together. So community building was its primary focus. So our goal was, how can we bring people from the community together during a time of quarantine, and educate the general public that COVID-19 is not just a general health crisis, like it is impacting children's hospitals and it's crippling them. And here's the impact. And please don't forget about us during this time. Through that event, or through those focuses, we were able to engage 1,800 people across 3 days. We provided entertainment like virtual esports tournaments or gaming tournaments, everything from playing Uno online to some of your fighting game communities. So just virtual tournaments. And then together that group, over the course of that 3 days, you could look at it as a virtual fundraising push day. They raised shy of $400,000 when sponsorships and fundraising all came together. So super, super happy with how it went. The community feel goods as if they were there in Orlando with us, and we're ready to take on the rest of the year. So.
That is amazing. I mean, great success. Obviously, you've been doing this for a while, so people maybe have a little bit more comfort in that space. But I guess another big takeaway about that is people are connecting. They want that sense of community, and people are still donating right now. And they understand that if you sort of help your message resonate in the time and the space that we're in, it can still be very effective, and people are still willing to donate. So that's amazing. Well, thank you so much. It's been so great to learn more. I have 1,000 questions about it.
Well, thanks for having me.
I was like, tell me more.
Yet another podcast follow-up.
Right. We'll do another We'll get even deeper into some of these Q&A conversations.
We will. There's a lot of good questions, so we'll definitely be following up. This gives us some blog posts and things like that. So we'll definitely be posting some answers to these questions in. And Mike, thanks for joining us. I'm really glad. This, again, is why I asked other people to help me MC the event. But now I'm on my phone, so I'm just going to stay here and be logged in twice.
Perfect. Well,
thank you both for rolling
this has been great.